Two shootouts last night. Nuggets sneak out a win against the Phoenix Suns, and the Cavs get a win over the Magic. We're going to break those two games down. And then who has the most to gain this postseason? Who has the most to lose? Those are the topics on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague who never uses a back-to-back for an excuse. It's Tim Legler.
What's up, man? How we doing? Haven't seen you in a week, so it's good to be back on with you.
Yeah, I'm doing good, but I'm dragging. I've got all the excuses today, Legs. All of them. I had a late
night.
What's
weird? I'm dragging for a different reason. Like you're dragging because you had a late game, and you're doing your thing, and we both have kids. That's always a thing. I'm dragging for a different reason. You ever come back from a vacation and you're like just tired?
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't vacation supposed to recharge you? Like I finished vacation. Yeah, I had a very, very, very long travel day yesterday to get from basically with my family on vacation, flew back with them from out of the country to Florida. And saw them off at the airport. Literally, my son could not figure out why I wasn't going to the car with them to drive home, because I literally claimed my bags, walked over 2 terminals, checked my bags again, and flew to Detroit, where I am right now, getting ready to call Hawks Pistons tonight. So I had basically like a 15-hour travel day yesterday. So I'm dragging for a different reason.
Yeah.
I got lazy over vacation, I think, a little bit. That's what happens.
This is like the best humble brag ever. I'm telling you, I'm on zero sleep, all this stuff. You're like, well, I'm exhausted. I've been sleeping all day.
That's pretty great. Exactly.
Well, we got a great show for you. I'm excited for the back half of it to talk about what's at stake. And we were talking pre-show, we might have a difference of opinion of just how much is at stake. I think a lot of players have a lot to gain this year. I don't know if a lot of players have a lot to lose, but I think Legs might disagree with that. So we'll get into that in the back half of the show, but we'll open as we always do with our FanDuel game breakdowns. We just talk about the games, the actual games. And last night, the Cavs and the Magic, this was the big matchup. 2 teams in the Eastern Conference with high hopes. And I would say of the Orlando Magic, a defensive-minded team, but not so much in this one. It was a shootout, 136-131. The Cavs got the win. Tell me about this game, Legs. What stood out to you?
Well, I think your point right off the bat about Orlando, it's like the narrative is different this year with this team. Last year, I thought of all of the teams I saw live outside of Oklahoma City, I thought the Orlando Magic consistently played harder than anybody else in the league that I watched. And it was all about their defense. Their shooting was anemic last year. Their defense kept them in games. They won them games. They went, all year really without really having a long stretch of their 2 best players together. So I just had so much respect for what they did and how they went about it. No shooting, stars not playing together, and you still find a way to win a lot of nights or be in games because of their defense. Their defense this year is mediocre. It's been mediocre. It's better than it was at the start of the year. But overall, for the most part, they're mediocre. They don't impose their will on teams the same way they did a year ago. They're still having the same problem with their stars not playing together, and Franz Wagner is still out. So that's still an issue. They did address the shooting with Desmond Bane, so their offense has a dynamic to it that they didn't have a year ago. But for me, the defense is just not quite what it was, and you saw that really in this game. Like against a team like Cleveland, you better come laced up and ready to go defensively. It turned out neither team really was able to guard each other, and it turns into a shootout. And if that's the case, Cleveland's got more weapons late to solve the game. And that's basically what this came down to. And you had spectacular nights out of Harden and Mitchell was just great down the stretch. And overall, that's what it came down to for me. You're in a position to win the game, but Cleveland, on a night when neither team was doing a particularly good job guarding each other, Cleveland had more answers on how to solve the game than Orlando did.
Yeah, the Cleveland, though, is kind of a scary offense, and they're starting to get more and more guys back. Obviously, Max Strus is back for him. He gives them 27 minutes. But their offense, when you just look at the 2-headed monster of Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, that's 2 elite initiators. You got very effective finishers, both inside and outside. So part of me looks at this and goes, when I see a defensive-minded team or a team that should be a defensive-minded team versus an offensive team, you always wonder, well, what's it going to be? Is it going to be an offensive game, a defensive one? Cleveland's ability to put up, I think Cleveland's just going to be able to put up 120 points against almost everybody, and that's their calling card. That's the thing. So when I see this matchup and it plays on their terms, that's my big takeaway is Cleveland can dictate the pace and the style, I guess, of the game.
When I was looking at this game, one thing that I just kept saying to myself is, can you imagine how we would view James Harden in terms of an all-time great if he hadn't had some of these moments in the postseason that he's had? Because that's really the only thing that's keeping him. It's not the talent. The talent's absurd. And you saw it again last night. When you talk about the combination of handle, shooting ability, passing ability, and just raw strength and availability. I mean, you add all those things up, you're talking about one of the great offensive talents in the history of this league. And yet you still look at him, and look, maybe his style in Houston is not for everybody, and he got some detractors. People don't want to watch maybe one guy dominate the ball to that extent the way he did in Houston. And so I think he's carried that around with him. In other stops where people, maybe they've already made up their mind on how they view Harden and that style of basketball. It's not quite like that now, or in Philly. It really didn't look like it did in Houston. But when you just break down the guy's talent, there are very few guys in the history of this league that possess all of that offensive talent in one body. The problem is he has had these moments in the postseason where his team has needed him to be much better on a given night, or the way I've always described it is his floor on a given night to not be so low.
Yeah.
And he's had those everywhere he's been. And because I'm watching him last night, I'm just going, there is nobody that can guard him and keep him from, like, no one dictates terms to James Harden offensively. Some guys, here's an answer for those guys.
Yeah.
You can figure out a way, man. There's a personnel you can put on them. There's a scheme you can come up with to limit them. Like, something's effective. There's no such thing like that for James Harden because his handle's too tight. His strength is too great, and his shooting ability and passing ability, if you do take his scoring away, is an answer. So he's got all of this, but he still hasn't been able to have like those big signature moments. And I'm not talking about in a series, because he did that a couple years ago in Philly, when he basically won 2 games by himself against Boston with a 40-point game, and then another game, maybe it was 40 both, but it's not as close to it. But then the other 5 games, he averaged 11 points a game. And that's what I'm talking about. So he's had moments. It's not like he's never played well in the postseason. It's tonight. It's 2-2. It's tonight. We have to have it tonight. He's had some of those moments where you scratch your head, and it keeps him from, I think, elevating himself to that place. Because I'm watching him last night, and that's all I kept thinking. No matter what they put on him, no matter what he saw in front of him, he goes where he wants to go. He gets the shot off that he wants, if that's what he wants to do. If not, he'll get downhill and he'll beat you with a finish or a pass. And I think that was my big takeaway watching this. And now he's paired with Mitchell. Like, this is one of James Harden's best opportunities of his career, because there's no clear-cut team in the East that you go, oh, nobody's beaten them this year. There is no team like that in the Eastern Conference. So this is his opportunity, and I'm wondering if he will be able to do it. Can he show up on that night when they just have to have a great game out of him? That's what we're waiting to see out of James Harden. It's like the last hurdle for him, because there's no denying the talent.
He might show up in our list later on, but you are right that he is one of the more fascinating players, certainly in the Eastern Conference, just because you would not be surprised if he has a dud of a playoffs and, things don't go well. But I think the talent is also there. This team is such an interesting fit for him that you wouldn't be surprised if he just had an elite postseason. I think with Harden, I was thinking about this the other day. I think he's actually sneaky high up in the most influential players of the last 26 years. If we just go from the year 2000 forward, Steph Curry's the most influential player, I think, because he just brought the volume of the 3-point shot to the game, and the Warriors are so influential. After that, I think you could make a case for a bunch of different guys, including Harden. Like, LeBron's a great player. He's no question he's a great player, but how influential was he? His influence in terms of what the league took, from him, you can't copy him because he's such a one-of-one athlete and mind. So what really stems from him, I think a lot, it was his player agency and the way he sort of built teams and put pressure. That's now very common across the NBA, pre-agency. Kobe Bryant, I think culturally, the mentality, a lot of people, I think, follow in his footsteps. Allen Iverson culturally in a lot of ways. James Harden brought in the low pickup point, which is now every player in the NBA does this. The crossover, pick it up low, rip it through to get to the rim, the step back, just this style of play. We see Luka Dončić, we see Jalen Brunson. Harden really kind of invented this. I think he might be, if there's a case, I think he's the second most influential player in terms of the style of the game. He might be the second most influential the last 26 years.
I don't think that's crazy, man. And I think the biggest part of it is the one-on-one isolation step back 3 game.
Yep.
Because, and you mentioned a couple of guys, you could throw Jason Tatum in there as another guy, hell, Donovan Mitchell is a guy like that. So that has become now a staple for elite offensive players in this league. Your ability to go get your own 3 off the dribble with a step back, going one direction or the other. And no one's done that more over the last 10, 12, 15 years than James Harden. And so I think that's fair to say. Now, what will be interesting to see is when they get into the postseason, and you look at the Cavs now, so they are 21-7 in their last 28 since January 19th. So their record is great since then, but they're just 9-6 in their last 15. Now they haven't had Jared Allen, who was incredible in February, and he's been out, and that's a big loss. He had the best month of his career in February. And now you missed him. At the same time, you get Strus back, and so they're still not completely whole. And so Jared Allen's a big piece of this. But so you look at the Cavs, and I just say, again, they've now got themselves in a position where it looks like most likely they're going to end up 4th. And they're probably going to play Atlanta or Toronto in the first round. That's the series. They have to win that series. They're going to have home court advantage. You cannot lose that series if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. With a Mitchell Harden backcourt, with that front court with Mobley and Allen, shooters all around. You just can't. Then you get into the series that could kind of help reshape how we view the team, how we view their star players, how we view their head coach. All of that will be that second round series against a team most likely in the Detroit Pistons, if they get there, that hasn't won anything collectively. They've been the best team in the East this year, but they haven't won anything as a group. They're missing Cade Cunningham right now. They're going to be probably reinserting him right back before the playoffs start. So that's not an easy thing to do. It's that opportunity is going to be right there with a team of 2 veteran stars and in the backcourt with an elite front court. And you've got to go get that one too. So it's right there for them. And I don't think I'm ruling it out that they're capable of doing that. There's not another team that I absolutely bona fide believe in. No one's beating this team 4 times in a series on the way to the NBA Finals from the Eastern Conference. I don't view any of those teams that way. So, Adam, it's there for them. They need Allen back. They've got winnable series that they're going to be looking at, and they're going to need both of their star guards to play well when it really matters in those series-defining moments.
They have a handful of games with Allen there when Harden was there, but he's been out since March 3rd. How important? I have this question for a lot of teams. Denver is this way. How much time do they need together going into the playoffs to really maximize? Is this a thing where we're already down to 9 games? He comes back, you get 9 games with everybody there. Say, okay, is that enough to set the table? What is the limit there for Cleveland to really know what they have with all of their key guys?
For Jared Allen, he needs almost no time. I mean, Jared Allen can play a couple of games before the playoffs start, really, because of the nature of his game. You're not running sets for him at all. He's a high ball screen dive. Now he started making shots during the month of February that and I called a couple of those games and I called one of those games with Michael Malone and he had a big game that night. And
he had a 40-point game.
We were looking at each other like who is that guy? Because he was taking one-footed off the wrong foot runners from 10 feet. And it was like he knew it was going in. And I've never seen that out of Jared Allen. So I don't know what was going on during that time, but for a guy like that, his influence on the glass, playing in the dunker spot, the screen dive, blocking shots, rim protect, he doesn't need much time at all. You're not incorporating a usage rate player into the equation. at all. The guy shot 74% in the month of February, averaging 22 and 11. Yeah. So he couldn't have been in better rhythm. I don't think he's the type of guy that needs to touch the ball a whole lot to go out there and be really effective. So it's good that they got Strus back, and he's been streaky. He had a great first game when he came back, had 24 points in that first one, then struggled for a few, played a little bit better last night. Max Strus is very, very important to this team.
I agree.
He defends. He's got a lot of energy. His motion creates opportunities for other people. And when you have him out there and Sam Merrill at the same time, and those are the two guys on either wing spacing the floor, and you got Harden, Mitchell, and one of those bigs, like you now, it's a very difficult decisions have to be made defensively. They're also much better in transition with their spacing when Strus is on the floor. He's a really important player. He's back. He'll continue to get better. He's got, how many games did Cleveland have left? 10. He's got 10 games to find his real shooting rhythm. I think he can do that. Jared Allen doesn't need much time. As long as he's got a couple of games to get some wind, he's going to be a factor in the first round immediately, whether he gets a whole lot of regular season action remaining or not.
I just wonder if the defense collectively, like, again, not Allen. I think you're right that for him, it doesn't need a ton of ramp-up time, but the team, their identity is just going to be so different with him. And his replacement's Thomas Bryant, who is nothing like him. You know, this happens sometimes where, like, the backup player is nothing like the starting player. So when a player's out, it's not like, okay, do the same type of thing. Everything changes. So we'll see what happens. I think Cleveland is the hardest team for me to figure out. And maybe it's different for other people, but even Boston working Tatum back and everything else, I still feel like I have a better read of who they are and what they'll be in the playoffs. Cleveland is the one team that, to me, I have a hard time kind of picturing what they'll be, but I think they're going to be very good. What about on the other side, Orlando? What stood out to you? What notes do you have or takeaways you have from what happened with them last night?
Well, I think the first thing is just, Banchero played great in that game. And he's picked up his efficiency second half of the year, but it hasn't been what you need it to be. He was great last night. He was a stud. He was physical. He got to his spots. He looked like a star offensive player last night. One of the things, I'm just sitting there looking at them and I'm going, this situation with Franz Wagner, it's defining their season because he went out. He's played 4 games in 3.5 months with a high ankle sprain. I mean, and he just went down to the G League. I guess he got a practice in. It doesn't sound like it's like imminent. He's about to return. He's such a talented player. They're so unique because they've got these two like big forwards that operate their offense. They're the initiators for this team. They did address the shooting with Bane. So you'd love to see him whole and say, hey, what if? I don't know we're going to get that, man. This is obviously something a lot more than your typical ankle sprain. The guy's been out basically for almost 4 months with this injury. And I'm watching them last night and I'm saying they're just not believable without another big-time offensive player. They're just not with what they have. And that's kind of what I took out of last night. They've lost 6 straight games. Now, 2 of those, they weren't really in the fourth quarter. 4 other games. These are one-possession games with a few minutes to go. All winnable games. And they come up short in all of them to now create this 6-game losing streak. And it tells you right there, they don't have enough at their disposal offensively with the game on the line that you can count on. Wagner gives them another look as a guy that maybe that would be the tipping point where they're winning some of these close games and you have more of a believability factor going into the postseason.
6 losses is tough. They are good teams with one exception. They lost to Indiana, which is a really tough one, a tanking team. But all the other ones, Oklahoma City, Charlotte, the Lakers, Cleveland, I mean, they're good teams. But that's also an important indicator for what to expect in this postseason, and they were coming off of a 7-game win streak right into that. It's always weird when that happens, like 7-game win streak, 6 games losing streak, back-to-back. That's
what's nuts? Adam, what's nuts is this team was buried early.
Yeah.
They played their way up to the 5th spot.
What a weird year for them.
And now they've got a real chance to end up 10th. Now they won't fall below 10th. I mean, it's it. We know the 10 teams, both conferences. We know the 10 teams. So now it's just a matter of who gives themselves the best opportunity by having multiple chances to get in. And again, this is a little different. I feel like a little bit different in the East than it is the West because the West has had these 2 dominant teams that can beat you on both ends. That can shut you down defensively. Unique offenses, balance with Oklahoma City, San Antonio. So it's a little bit different. You get into that 7-8 spot. That's going to be a major upset for somebody to pull that off against one of those 2 teams. Like shocking.
Yeah.
It won't be shocking in like the Eastern Conference, like because these teams at the top, Detroit, they're missing their best player, and like they hit a little bit of a wall the second half of the year. Boston adding Tatum, who's just not efficient, not quite the same, does not have the same explosiveness, but they clearly have culturally and like what they've done from an identity standpoint has been incredible this year. And the way they play is just so on point. They don't turn the ball over. They defend the paint. They shoot the three. They move it. Like they're just, I have so much respect for them, but they're still going through this transition period where you're bringing back a great player with a really high usage rate, by the way, but it's not ready to be efficient and dominant yet. So that is sort of like this X factor for them. And then you got the Knicks and the Cavs. So like you look at the top of the East, it's just a different thing. So all these teams now, when you look at 8, 9, 10, and well, even Philly's one game up on those three teams. So 7 through 10 could end up any which way. And you're just trying to give yourself the best opportunity to win a game and get yourself into a best of 7 against one of those top teams and roll the dice against them. And Orlando, it's got some playoff experience. If you get Wagner back, it would make it a lot more interesting. But it's hard for me to buy into a team that's struggling to win games this late in the year, that hasn't been as good defensively, that they're going to really be a major threat to anybody in the East.
Well, you could say all of those same things about the Phoenix Suns, who have now lost 6 of their last 7 games. They lost last night to Denver, and a nail-biter, 125-123. Denver took control of this game, built like a 10-point lead, but Phoenix rallied back, made this a close one, and it really was just clutch time in the fourth both ways, and neither team could get a stop, which has been the story of Denver's season all year. They can score on the best of them, but can they get stops when it matters? Last night, the answer was no, and the separator in this game was a fairly wide open Devin Booker 3 that just didn't go down, was a little bit short. Hit that, and it was a win. It was a 3-point shot at the buzzer that would have swung the game. So Denver escapes. Legs, what stood out to you about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm sitting there picturing your pain watching the game because it looks like they got it put away mid-fourth quarter, double-digit lead, and here it goes. Right, Phoenix starts making shots. Denver has some bad offensive possessions. They don't convert, and next thing you know, you got a tie game. It's anybody's game, and they're able to hold on. My first takeaway from the game in general was just completely underwhelmed with what I was watching defensively from both teams. It's one thing. Some nights you watch high-scoring games, and you're kind of like, man, goodness, like the shot making, the play making, like elite level. Like there's not much you can do defensively against that. I didn't feel that way in this game. I felt like there were a ton of mistakes made. There were mistakes made like with your vision defensively and losing track of shooters, guys turning and ball watching, guys getting face cut from the weak side of the floor, guys not matching up or communicating in transition and giving up easy shots. So I felt like these are two like really talented offensive teams that weren't getting a lot of resistance defensively. And if anything, this to me is a game Denver should win this game by 10, 12, 15 points.
Yeah.
Because they played that well offensively. Like you're supposed to against a team that's missing Dylan Brooks. They're not playing well. They're not closing games. Yeah. Look, they're still a fun team. They play hard. I like what they've done. They've turned their franchise around in a lot of ways and how you believe about them going forward. And maybe even they get Dylan Brooks back this year. It could be a tough out for somebody. But this is your Denver. You're supposed to get this game by double digits. You got a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. It's supposed to end that way. It's not supposed to get as tight as it did, and it only did because their defense. They're not able to go string together 2-3 stops and close the game out and not make it a situation where you're holding your breath as Devin Booker goes up with a fairly uncontested 3-point shot after the ball fake. The ball fake, I think, threw him off a little bit. Guy flies by. He's got to now reload. And then the defender's closing back on his shooting side. That, to me, probably was the difference between him making and missing that shot. Or they go out of there with a 1-point loss. They feel horrible about themselves. Instead, it's a 2-point win. I don't know. They feel that much better about themselves that they won that game because, for me, that was more about Denver's shortcomings and how that didn't end up a double-digit win because that's what it's supposed to be with this team. If you really think they're a contender, you get up 10 in the fourth quarter in this game, you're supposed to win that game by 10 or more.
They went to a Haka Oso late in the game too, which to me kind of signals that they had no faith in their defense. If you're playing that team, and again, you should feel a little mismatched. But with like 4 minutes to go, they just kept intentionally fouling Oso Ighodaro, who's not a good foul shooter, but he'd actually made him But nonetheless, Legs, do you approve of the strategy there? Or if you're a team ramping up for the playoffs, is it, hey, let's just get stops in the clutch here. Let's see what we can do.
For me, yeah. I mean, that'd be more my mentality, I think, in that situation. Although I'll say this. There are nights I watch games and I'm going, this strategy is available to you. I don't think it's employed enough some nights. I don't understand why it's not for certain guys in this league. Because here's the thing. It's more than – it's honestly, to me, if I were a coach and I went to this, it's a lot less about whether he makes or misses free throws, whoever I choose to foul. It's way less about that than it is you're disrupting the rhythm of their offense, and it's one possession less that their best players don't dictate the terms of the possession. That, for me, is the biggest reason. And that's why, like, I'm surprised, like, take an example like the New York Knicks. I'm surprised more teams don't go to that immediately with Mitchell Robinson. Now, the one downside to it, I get it, is, well, you're putting your team in the bonus and like earlier. And so now, you know, it's going to be harder to guard those other guys. But I think if you're up there at 3 fouls, 4 fouls in the quarter, when you start to do it, you're basically the bonus anyway. I don't know why teams don't stick with it more than a couple of possessions. So I do think there are opportunities to do it. In this situation, I would have loved to have seen Denver just say, you know what? No, let's figure this out. Let's get stops. Let's close this game out the way that a contending team is supposed to. And they really weren't able to do it. And it got far more interesting, I think, than I expected it to.
One of the things Denver has going on right now is now that they're fully healthy, quote unquote fully healthy, they have just guys on minutes restrictions and game management. So Aaron Gordon plays last night. Peyton Watson does not. Tonight they're on the final back-to-back of the year, thank God. And Peyton Watson will play. Aaron Gordon will not. But even with Aaron Gordon, because I think Aaron Gordon is the key to their defense and really key to their clutch time offense, he's on this minute restriction, basically 25 minutes. He plays 26 last night. And Legs, one of the things that happens is he played the first 6 minutes of the third quarter and then doesn't check back in until the final 6 minutes of the fourth, but it's because he's up against his minute total. But that is a really long break. It was like probably 45 minutes of real time where he was just on the bench. And I almost wonder, one, that's so hard for a team to adjust to. It's super hard for a player to adjust to. But also, doesn't it feel like more of an injury risk to play a guy, sit him for 45 minutes, and then bring him back in to close the most important possessions?
Completely. And that's a point I've been making ever since I first started hearing the words minutes restriction. Well, okay, I get it. You think that a guy coming back, and it's not even about, a lot of times not even about usage, it's about like conditioning and your wind being there and your stamina being there to prevent you from hurting something else because you're not in condition you need to be to play those kind of minutes. That's really what it is. Not like, oh, the guy's got a foot injury, plays 26 minutes, his foot's fine, 28 minutes, his foot is in trouble. It's not that. It can something else happen because your wind isn't there. And now, a misstep here, misstep there, you land funny, whatever it may be. So that's where the minutes restrictions come from. Here's the thing. If you're going to have it, you better be really clever about how you use it, because to go beginning of a quarter, end of the next quarter is far too long for a guy to be sitting over there. And to me, to try to ramp up, and I don't know if it was 45 minutes, but it was definitely more than 30. I'd like to find out exactly, probably 37, 38 minutes, be my guess.
Yeah.
Between action.
So long, man.
That's just not, to me, something that makes a lot of sense in terms of bringing a guy back from an injury, how that's better for them. It doesn't really jibe. So that's something they think they need to be smarter about in how they utilize that. Yeah, you might be better off, hey, maybe you don't close the game with Aaron Gordon. Look, if the minutes restriction is more important to you than winning games, because that's really what we're saying. If that's the case, maybe your best bet is don't start him. Play him like, whatever.
Yeah, can you just play
first quarter, first 9 of the second? Yeah. And then obviously you're going to have then the halftime break. You can't do anything about that. That's going to be 15 minutes anyhow you play. Then a little bit of the third, you don't start him. Then you play him 9, 10, whatever, 12 straight minutes in the middle. Yeah. And that might be the best way, and you don't have him on the court at the end of the game.
I don't think they're going to change this, by the way. I think for the rest of the year, Aaron Gordon's going to be around this. I think they can ramp him up
in the regular
in the
season. They can't do this in the playoffs.
No, of course. In the playoffs, I think they'll play him regular minutes, but
Yeah.
I just don't know if they're going to ramp him up towards that. I think Aaron Gordon, they're just going to try to play him 25 minutes a game for the rest of the year, and then playoffs, here you go. Here's 38 minutes. We'll see how it works. Denver, here's the real takeaway I have for Denver is I just have no idea what to make of them, and I don't think they have looked like a championship contender really since like October, November, where they looked really promising. But some of this is, a lot of this is just the injuries and what have you. But I don't know what to make of the fact that I don't feel like we have seen Denver's ceiling for 5-6 months. And maybe we won't. They don't have a very tough schedule. They do play the Spurs twice more and Oklahoma City once at the very end. I don't know if those guys will play their main guys, so I don't know how competitive it'll be. But I just don't know what to make of a team when we won't see their ceiling all year. Don't you feel like you need to see it at least once or twice?
Yeah. You would love to see at some point here, the remainder of the regular season, you'd love to see them have 4 or 5 game stretch. And are they going to get that type of opponent where you even get to determine that? Dallas, Utah, Golden State, Utah coming up.
Nope, none of those are going to – you won't learn anything from those games.
So the one thing you better do, you better win all 4 of those games.
Yep, you just got
to
win
all 4 of those games. That's all.
But they won't mean anything outside.
Then you got San Antonio. Okay, legit. Who knows though? You never know at this time of the years. Who decides to take some nights off? Are you gonna? Are they gonna have their full complement?
Wemby wants to win MVP, and he can't miss more than I think 2 more games. So I think that game will be their only chance to kind of test themselves.
Portland, you got to show up and play against them, but they're still a 500-ish type team. Yeah. Memphis. So you got 5 games in the next 7 that you have to win just by showing up and playing. You should win 5 of those games. Portland, you should win that game too. That's at home. You got to beat that team.
Yeah.
So
they just beat them by 15. So I
think San Antonio at home. Hey, maybe you win, maybe you lose. We'll see how that goes. But minimum, to me, you got to go 6-1 in the next 7, and that sets up Oklahoma City, San Antonio to finish the year. And again, who knows at that point if 1 and 2 are locked up, they might not play anybody. Unless Wemby needs to play for MVP, because I think that race is more narrow now than it was. So I think that might be a consideration for them. We'll see. But
not to mention, if you want MVP, you know how you can leave a statement last game of the year, go up against a 3-time MVP and put up a big number, have a good game. It actually would be a big MVP case for Wemby to come out and play well in that game. So we'll see.
Regardless, it'd be nice here. Let me ask you this. We said you're not going to learn anything for them. Dallas, Utah, Golden State, Utah.
Yeah, I don't think
you're not going to learn. Certainly 3 of those games. Golden State's still playing, trying to play. Yeah. They're just got a lot of injuries themselves. But those other 3, I don't know, man. Maybe you could learn something if those are all 25-point wins. You show up with the right mentality and you pound the teams. You're supposed to pound. You do that to those teams. To me, the inconsistency is still going to be in your mind going into the playoffs. But at least you feel a little bit better. You can't have any of these be 1-possession games in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You got to go take care of these teams and dispatch them. Get it over with. Where you're resting guys the last 10 minutes of the game because the game's over. That's the kind of consistency you need to see out of them over this next week. The bottom line with them is just, do you buy into them defensively against the teams that they're going to have to beat and slow down defensively to legitimately make a run at another finals? And I think right now most people are saying no.
If your answer is yes, it's purely based on faith, not on anything you've seen, because we just haven't seen it, and you just have to think that they can do it. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we'll talk about players and coaches who have a lot at stake, and we'll probably debate it. I think there's some coaches with a lot at stake. Players, I don't know. We'll talk about that on the other side. Now, new FanDuel customers can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Here's how it works. Place a tournament bet using the token, and if it doesn't win, you'll get up to $300 back in bonus bets. That's a win-win. Every single day for 10 straight days. That's 10 chances to play all tourney long, from game props and money lines to spreads, totals, futures, and more. You can even mix things up with a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to fill out your bracket, FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the action day after day. So visit FanDuel.com/AllCity to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com/AllCity to get in on the action. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Sunglass season here in Colorado and around most of the country, 88 degrees. You know that moment, though, the one where you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, we've all been there, but Shady Rays has come along and they've changed the game. They have got sunglasses that are made for real life, and they're seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And the wild part is, if you lose or break them even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use code ALLCITY for 40% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the like button, leave us a comment below. And leave us a comment below on this next question. Which player, Legs, is facing the most pressure going into this postseason? Or I should just say stands the most to gain, stands the most to lose?
I think there are a number of guys that you look at. I think players and coaches. I think there are some guys. I think some coaches. I think some coaches have guys have stuff to lose.
I agree.
And I think players have more to gain.
Okay.
Because I think there are some guys that you're not going to necessarily change your opinion in a downward direction, but you could change it in an upward direction. It's in terms of how you view them, pecking order, that kind of thing, or hierarchy in the league. I think for me, one of those guys we've talked about a little bit at the start of this is Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell, and his backcourt mate, James Harden. I think both of those guys are in a very similar category, because Mitchell, while hasn't had as many of like the dramatic games where he just didn't, really do anything offensively when his team needed him to, as Harden, he has had some games where he has shot really poorly in a game 7 or a game to get them through. So now here it is in front of both of them, and Mitchell's had an incredible year. You could argue the best year of his career. James Harden, now with this opportunity, with this team, renewed life. He's been great since he got there. I think both of these guys have an opportunity. For Harden, like, you're not going to sit there and he makes it, they make a run through the playoffs, they get to the conference finals or finals. You're not going to all of a sudden go, wow, James Harden's a pretty good player. Like, you already know the talent level. But it just, in terms of finally watching him be on a team, not going back to those early days of Westbrook and Harden, he was 21, 22 years old. I'm talking about since then. Like, not being that guy that you're looking at as saying, man, James Harden had one of those nights. If he can be big when they have to have it to get them through a round, if it's a game 6 closeout game, a game 7, and maybe Mitchell's just okay, but he's great, it can at least eliminate some of that just constant narrative about where's he going to be in the postseason. So I think both of those guys have something to grab in an upward direction, not as much in terms of how we would view them negatively if they don't play well.
I do think that the Cavs this year as a team, and you're right that those two guys, like winning or just going to the finals would feel like, it's a bit of a surprise just coming from the 4 seed. And yet it feels very possible. Boston, I was picking Boston almost as a shoo-in, just feeling so good about them in the early days of Tatum's return. I think they're a lot more vulnerable now. Detroit's vulnerable. So the Cavs are sitting there with an opportunity, and you're right, man. It does seem like it's going to hinge on the performances of those two guys. I think they have a lot to lose, though. You mentioned it as more to gain. I agree, but I also still think there's a lot to lose there. And, oh, by the way, what is the future of the Cavs? This is a team that can have a couple more years, run at this, okay, build around the margins. It's also a team that you could look at and say they might blow it up this summer if they really flame out in this playoffs. And just
to your point, and I would let's just tag him because he's part of this group. I think that's why it's a huge postseason for Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah.
He came in, he took over a team that had a great year the year before. They didn't play well in the playoffs. They fired Bickerstaff. Kenny Atkinson comes in and wins 64 games, coach of the year. And again, they struggle in the postseason to get it done. Now, they had really tough injuries at that time. hopefully Jared Allen comes back, and now you've got Strus back, and they got their full complement of players. There's less of a built-in injury excuse this year if they get Jared Allen back, which they will, prior to the postseason. For Kenny Atkinson, look, will they fire him? I'm not saying that. I'm not calling for that. I'm just saying, you have a team when the path is a little bit easier because of what happened with Tatum, what happened with Halliburton, the path is a little bit clearer for you. You go out, you make the splashy move at the deadline to bring in James Harden. If this is a team that struggles to get out of the first round, like somehow they lose a first round series, I think Kenny Atkinson is a guy that's also got some downward pressure on him. Don't know what would happen if they give him another year, what would happen in that situation. But you got a team with this kind of talent going into the postseason without a clear-cut, absolute, unbeatable team in front of you in the top three, then I think you've got to win a round or two. That's what this team has to do to live up to the talent that they have. And for Kenny Atkinson, I think, to cement his place in the way he's viewed around the league. I think it's important postseason for him.
Just one more point on this Cavs team, because I think they are fascinating in this way. If we were to power rank the teams most likely to blow it up, just completely change course because they had a poor postseason, they might be at the top of the list. Oklahoma City's not going to do that. San Antonio's not going to do that. Detroit, Boston, they're not doing that. You could make a case the Knicks, if they really flame out in this playoffs and it looks horrible, do they make some big moves? Maybe. Cleveland for sure. Denver maybe if they lost in the first round. I don't know if there's a lot of teams we look at and say the stakes are complete change of course of what direction they're going, but Cleveland is one that you could absolutely see that.
As far as the Knicks go, I don't know that you're talking about total change of course, but I'll just say that it's crazy to think this is his first year, Mike Brown in New York, and they're sitting here right now. They got a real shot at being the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Pretty damn good regular season. And here's why I think he's under more pressure than anybody on their team. Because I think we already look at all of their players and you kind of know the upside, the downside, the warts, everything else. Nothing's going to surprise you. Like if Karl Anthony Towns, who's had a tough year offensively, and he's had a tough year, kind of finding his place in their offense this year. If Karl Anthony Towns goes for 30 plus and 15 rebounds and gets them through a couple of rounds, that would be kind of surprising based on the year he's had. But you kind of know he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And if he averages 15 and 12, you're not going to be shocked because that's been a good chunk of this season. Jalen Brunson, you know what he is. You know what Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby are. Josh Hart, you know those guys. So for me, the scrutiny will come with the Knicks will come around coaching decisions. And that's where people are going to be diving in the New York media. Get late game management, substitution patterns, what you're running against certain teams, your adjustments against certain teams' best offensive players. I think Mike Brown is probably under more pressure than anybody on the Knicks roster. Do you agree?
Man, more pressure than even the players. Maybe. Here's what I'll say. I just find it hard to imagine them moving on from coaches. You're right that I think that it would just put pressure on them in the coming years, but I can't imagine you fire 2 coaches in 2 seasons.
I'm not sure either guy gets fired.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either one gets fired, but I do know if they don't, let's say the Cavs lose in the first round. Let's say the Knicks lose in the second round. Okay. Or they both lose the second round. I guess that's possible, right?
Yeah.
Because they finished 3-4, they could both lose in the second round.
Which would feel disappointing for both
teams. It feels
disappointing.
Yeah. It will feel disappointing for both of those teams, no doubt.
Even though
that's what I'm saying. So maybe they don't make a coaching change this year, but man, oh man, does that turn up the temperature on both of those guys and those franchises next season. Next season, it's it. You break through or we're just figuring out something completely different to do. I don't know that that's necessarily the case after this year, but it absolutely sets the stage for that going into next season if neither of those teams get to the conference finals.
It is funny that the Knicks and Cavs are in the 3-4 spot, and yet it feels like for both of them, conference finals has to be the standard for them at minimum, and they both will be underdogs, I guess, just at least in terms of the standings. Okay, who else? Who else has pressure or has a lot to gain?
Here's a guy I think has a lot to gain, and I think he has a lot to gain no matter – even if they lose the series. And I'm going to be calling his game tonight. I think Jalen Johnson has an opportunity to really open some eyes. Like, let's say we get it the way it's set up now, it's a 3-6 is Knicks-Hawks. If that series goes 6 or 7 games and Jalen Johnson is putting up the same type of numbers he has all season, where he's basically getting 25, 30-point triple doubles, most of that series, it's going to elevate him dramatically going into next season. They've barely been on this year on national TV. That's why I'm excited we got him tonight. Now, he's questionable. He's had a shoulder injury. I hope he plays tonight. We're not going to get Cade Cunningham, so that's disappointing. To see both of those guys have been great. But this is an opportunity almost. They've won, I think, 12 out of 13. This is an opportunity, or 13 out of 14, to like introduce them to everybody. Like, this team's in the playoffs. They're going to be a playoff team. And Jalen Johnson is one of the young, emerging, legit star players in this league that's gotten very little attention. So I think Jalen Johnson, actually, even in a losing cause, if he has a monster series and they lose in 6 or 7, or hell, even 5, if he's like the best player some of those nights, I think Jalen Johnson is setting the stage kind of for like next year, people's expectations of him.
I hope so, man. I do wonder if the market thing is just going to keep him a little bit hidden, but he belongs in the conversation of like these top tier players in the NBA. So I would welcome that. Who else? Who else have made your list?
How about the Minnesota Timberwolves, like just collectively?
Yeah. Where do they belong in this?
And, listen, there's 2 clear-cut better teams in the West this year, like clear-cut. Oklahoma City, San Antonio. We know those are better teams. But still, it doesn't necessarily matter when the narrative is 2 straight conference finals. Like, when are you gonna figure this out? When are you gonna break through and get it done? So I think, Anthony Edwards, I don't know actually, like, I think people view him a certain way where he is, his star status in the league. I'm not sure unless he literally like gets them through and there's an upset. They beat somebody like right now, they would be in the 5-4. They beat Denver. I don't even know if you'd consider that an upset. I think both of those teams are capable of beating each other. And I'm sure he'd have a big series. Jokic would have a big series. He wins the series. I don't know that changes anything. But the next round, if they then go play Oklahoma City and he somehow figures out a way to get them through and win that series, and he basically equals or outplays Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, that's what I feel like it's going to take for him to break through another level. Anything short of that, no. And I think Chris Finch is probably under some pressure, whether you feel it's justified or not, based on the fact there are better teams. So what do you expect them to do? But when you've been to 2 straight conference finals and you don't get there again, at minimum, it's going to feel like you're taking a step back. Do you agree?
I think so. It's also weird, though, in that this is something I don't foresee, though. You know what I mean? Like, this is a weird one where if it doesn't happen, it'd be like, yeah, they're a weaker team.
No, I agree. And that's why I don't think there's, like I said, there's not like downward pressure.
Just upward. It's just upward mobility.
But upward, you can go grab something you haven't been able to. And even for a guy like Anthony Edwards, who, like I said, people, view him as a legit star in this league. He's certainly box office, super entertaining, all those things. Like, if you're able to somehow, what's it going to take? Yeah. And I don't know that he could do it because, look, he just got, it was really tough for him to operate against Oklahoma City, right, last year. So I don't know that he's capable of doing it, but it might take that to grab another rung on that ladder, man. Go average 35 against the Thunder in the second round, win or lose, get that thing to 7 games, 6-7 games. You average 35, you play even better than you did in the regular season. Then you're absolved from blame at that point. It would be your supporting cast, and Chris Finch would probably take some of the blame if that were the case. But I think there's some pressure there just because of past success in the postseason.
I think the team and player with the most pressure, though, is probably the Houston Rockets. And it's weird because I don't expect them to go very far, but this has been a bit of a disappointing season. A lot of this has to do with injuries. I think they have had some really awful injury luck. But I do look at this Rockets team and just think that they made an all-in move. Or when I say all-in, I mean they went aggressive, saying we're trying to win it this year. Injuries happened that didn't, play out. But right now, I don't think the Rockets – that's the one team I look out in the top 6 and think I just don't think they're advancing to the second round. And yet – it would feel like a bit of a throwaway year for Kevin Durant. Ime Udoka probably will have some pressure with how difficult the offense has been for them. And then roster construction. if something bad happens, they go into a first round and just get killed. Let's say they play the Lakers and just get killed. It's not competitive in that series. Do they give up a little bit of faith in what they're building, or do they trust that Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams are going to fix it? I think there's some stuff at stake for this Rockets team.
There is, and I think let's go over some of these guys. I don't think there's downward pressure on Kevin Durant. I don't. Because here's what I think. If they lose in the first round, and right now I think they're slated to play the Lakers, they lose in the first round, and he just plays okay. Like Kevin Durant's never going to average like 14 points a game. But let's say Kevin Durant averages like 24, 25 points a game and doesn't shoot efficiently, which is also rare for him. You wouldn't even expect that. But if he did do that, you know what I think, honestly, most people would say? They didn't get a point guard. They don't have enough shooting. And Kevin Durant is, he's at the very end of his career. I don't think you're not going to change the way you view Kevin Durant historically. But some other guys on that team, like Alperen Sengun, he's got some downward pressure, man, because I think people were ready to put him in a certain place. Like, oh, well, guess what? If he plays subpar and they lose a competitive series with the Lakers, it's absolutely fair, based on the amount of love people were trying to give him, to say, well, wait a second, aren't you a second star? Like, Luka showed up. Austin Reeves had a great series. LeBron, you did his thing. Durant was really good. Where's Sengun? And I think Amen Thompson's in the same boat. If Amen Thompson averages 15 points a game and shoots under 50% from the field and like can't make a three, and his defense isn't that effective on Luka, I think both of those guys, Sengun and Amen Thompson, I'm not saying you all of a sudden go, oh, those guys can't play. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we were really moving these guys up, man, right? Moving them up pegs on the board. And it's like, okay, wait a second. Let's take a look at it. So I do think Durant has less of the downward pressure than those two guys. And I think Ime Udoka, I don't know, man, I just believe in kind of what he's built. Offensively, he could probably be better, but they don't have a point guard. They don't have any shooting.
Yeah.
Not enough shooting. So they're, and his whole thing is tough defense, rebounding. They do those things, but they can't close games. Yeah. They don't have a point guard to organize them. So I don't know that even Ime Udoka should get a ton of the blame if they lose a first-round competitive series to the Lakers.
But I also wonder about just how does this team feel about itself and about each other based on what happens here. Again, winning a championship feels like almost impossible for Houston. But can you have some momentum, positive momentum going into next year and just hope that VanVleet and everything fixes it? Or does the playoffs go really bad and the guys wonder and the organization just wonders, is Sengun, Amen, and KD our big three? Or do we need to make a move from that? I worry they get into a spot where they feel like they have to make a major decision in the offseason because it just doesn't look very hopeful for them. I think Denver has some pressure to them in just this one way. Denver losing early or losing decisively in the second or third rounds would feel to me like the league has passed them up. Like, okay, they had their arc, but if you lose to San Antonio or Oklahoma City in a decisive manner, not just, last year Denver had a chance at a Game 7 against Oklahoma City, you feel like, okay, run it back, let's see what happens. But if you lose in a decisive manner, I do think you have to worry about, is this formula expired? There's teams now that are just definitively better than it. That would be the end of an era, I think, for this Denver Nuggets team, if that were to happen. Yet, if they are to surprise people, there's also a chance that they could break through and actually win a chance. I still think that they have that upside in them. So I think they have a lot to gain and a lot to lose.
So how will you feel if we play this scenario out? They beat Minnesota in 6, lose to OKC in 7.
To me, that means they're still in that conversation. Like, if you look at that and say,
is that basically what it's going to take?
Just not decisive. Like, you can lose in 6 games. We've seen series go 6 games, and it's like, hey, but that was really competitive. They were right there in it. I don't think 5 or 4. I don't think there's you could make the case in a competitive 4 or 5 game series. But 6 or 7 and they're competitive, I think you could say, okay, it's on the margins. But if you lose definitively, I think that's
fair. I got one more team we probably need to mention. How are you going to feel about the Lakers if they lose a 3-6 in the first round?
So I was thinking about this one too, and I was thinking about LeBron and if he has pressure. And the reason I say that is because he's played now in LA longer than anywhere else, and he has a championship to show for it in the bubble. He has a conference run, Western Conference run, although they get swept by Denver in 2023. Not a lot of other playoff success for LeBron in his longest stint. And I do think if you lose in the first round, despite being a 3 seed, the aggregate, okay, what really happened there? Bubble championship, 1 run, no other playoff runs. That's kind of tough given the Lakers' expectations.
So let me ask you a question then. What happens other than we don't know about LeBron in his future? It seems like lately they're certainly playing better, and it seems like even his chemistry with Luka and all that, he seems happier.
Yeah.
But that could turn, as you know, they lose in 6 games to the Rockets in the first round when you've got home court advantage to a Rockets team that's really flawed. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, by the way. But if something like that were to happen, I think all the goodwill that they've just built up over the last month, and as well as they've played, and then the chemistry of the 3 players is now better, that's gone. That's completely gone. So now you go into the offseason and you go, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what do you do? At some point, they're turning this whole thing over to Luka, and it's going to be the Luka Dončić era. And I'm sure they probably hope for the next decade. And they're going to rebuild the team in a different way around him. It's going to look more like what they had in Dallas around Luka. Defenders, shooters, and rim runners, and him and Austin Reeves, right? And maybe you can go out and attract another free agent or something. I don't know. But so they're waiting for that to happen. And I don't know that they're thinking right now about that because they're playing well. But if they get beat in the first round and they get upset by a team that's really flawed, like the Rockets, if that were to happen, I really wonder how we would view this entire thing with the Lakers. So I think they've got a lot of pressure to at least win a round.
Yeah.
Now you got to win that round, and then you're going to end up probably playing the San Antonio Spurs. Most likely, assuming you're a 3 seed, you're going to get the Spurs or OKC in the second round. No one's going to pick them, I don't believe, to win that series. But if you can at least take them deep into the series, very competitive series, you lose in 6 or 7, I don't think people are going to feel quite as empty going into the summer as they will if that's a first-round loss or a second-round beatdown.
Well, this is why I think Luka has a lot to gain from this playoffs, because if they do make a run to the conference finals or beyond, given how the season has gone, there was a point in time when I think Lakers fans were upset with Luka and weren't feeling this or that. You turn it around and you make a deep playoff run. I do think the sense will be Luka can just always get you to a conference finals. And I think it would be a fair one. You would look at it and say, this is not a perfectly built team for Luka Doncic's strengths, but if he has a great playoff run and they make it deep, I think you could say it's not that hard to build a team that contend with Luka there.
And I also want to say, I see a couple of people saying that LeBron has nothing to lose. I completely agree with you, obviously.
Individually, yes. But
LeBron James is cemented. And and for me, he's locked in as the second greatest player of all time. Some people would say he's the greatest player of all time, and there's no problem. The career he's had, you can absolutely debate that, make that argument. It's a matter of opinion. He's no lower than 2 for me personally, and that's not going to change no matter what happens. Even if he were to win a title this year, and LeBron James was he's not going to be able to average 30 or something like that, but if he played great all the way through a final, I don't know that he would still, in my opinion, a lot of people that would say Jordan's the best player of all time, leapfrog Jordan. I don't think that's going to happen. He's not going to fall off. The guy's 41 years old. It's incredible what he's doing. So you're right. LeBron, nothing to lose downward at all. Totally agree with that. Luka, I don't even know that he has anything downward to lose either, because it doesn't really completely feel like they've reinvented the team around him the way they want to. That's when we'll judge Luka ultimately. If there were 4 years from now, Luka still hasn't won a title, that he's going to be assessed differently. He still has more time because he's young enough to figure it out in LA once they build a roster around him that's more suitable to the way he plays. So that leaves Austin Reeves. Maybe Austin Reeves is the guy that's got the pressure. Because you think about it, they're now basically declaring him as the second guy. And LeBron is now the guy that's figuring out the lane of how to fit around them and sacrifice. Well, okay. Then Austin Reeves needs to have, great games when they have to have it. You're going to be in some games with this tie game, 4 minutes to go in the first 4 games of a series. That's where the series won or lost a lot of times. You can't lose those opportunities if they're there in front of you. Maybe Austin Reeves has a chance for some upward mobility if he has some moments like that in the postseason.
and maybe a little bit of money coming his way in the offseason as he's ready to be paid. I think the last one I have for you, obviously Shai and the Thunder just as an organization have a lot to gain. You get 2 in a row, hasn't happened in a decade. You go down, the teams that have won back-to-back champions, it's a different list, when you start to separate every time you get 1 in a row. So they have a lot to gain. But I think the single individual with the most to gain and almost nothing to lose is Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs have a real shot this year. They're just such a different team than everybody else, and he's such a different player. And this is going to be his first postseason. It's possible Wemby has a dominant playoff run, especially when you talk about him playing just a heavy workload. I'm not trying to put that pressure on him, but it just feels early. The Spurs feel early, and my expectation, the natural rhythm of things is that they, lose a tough second round or third round matchup. Nobody blames them. They say it's part of the learning curve, and next year the window opens. You open it a year early. What will the conversation be, Legs, if Wemby plays great in the playoffs and they win a championship this year? What's the conversation around Victor Wembanyama, June 25th or whatever, if that happens?
The conversation around that will be you're looking at the next 10 years in the NBA. That's basically what you'd be looking at if they somehow they're able to pull it off. And
they're not getting worse.
It's him, obviously. That's the main talking point. But their team.
Yep.
Their team, man, is built for that kind of run.
Yeah.
With their toughness, how talented and young their guards and wings are. You're right about that, man. Like that could really be like a game of Jenga, man, and they just got pulled out of the middle and the whole thing collapsed. And now you're standing there with that piece in your hand. Like that could be the Spurs going forward if they're able to pull it off this year. And we don't have to make those predictions yet. Let's see if they can get through these first 2 rounds first.
I just don't think he has anything to lose. Even a struggle of a playoffs, nobody's going to make any wild proclamations or anything like that. But man, if he plays well, it's going to.
And isn't that a great place for him to be?
You only get to be there for like 1 year in your career.
No, that's it. That's so true. Mitch Johnson, him, him primarily, because you're not even going to judge guys like Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox and Harper that way. Wemby, what a great place to be.
Yeah.
Like we could get there sooner than anybody ever expected. And now here we go. Or you know what? You do lose in the second round, or you lose in the conference finals to the defending champion, whatever it may be. And no one's going to question like what this is about to look like. It's just not quite going to happen yet.
Yeah. Be a crazy one. All right. We have a super chat I saw come in earlier there. Producer Atticus. What do we have here? Dylan Pound says, what's the origin story of this podcast? How did you guys meet? I mean, the origin story is we have a mutual friend in Anthony Gargano who does a show. He's a huge radio guy out in Philadelphia, does a show for us on the All City Network. And, when we were getting ready for the show, knew we were going to do a national show. Legs was a guy I said, hey, if I could do a show with Legs, it'd be awesome. Gargano knew him, introduced us, and we hit it off right away. That's how I remember it, Legs.
That same way. Anthony Gargano approached me, talked about All City and potential to do a podcast, multiple days a week, and knew nothing about who my partner was going to be other than a name. And here's the funny thing, right, Adam, if I'm not mistaken, we did an entire year, that first season of shows, without having met.
Yeah, without ever being in person. It was Summer League
we
1
met
year into
in
it.
Summer League after the season, and we had just done, I don't even know how many shows we did that year. We were doing 4 shows a week. I don't even know how many shows we did. We didn't meet until Summer League, and even that was a brief encounter.
Yeah,
at Summer League, and that's when I was like, I had no idea you were that tall.
I think we've still only met 4 times. I think in our entire life, we've done the show for 3 years. 4 times we've been in person. It's just absolutely wild. Cue that outro music for us, Atticus. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We are back on Friday, me and Tim Legler. Over the weekend, we'll have Mark Stein. We always have content on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it, and leave a comment below and let us know who you think is facing the most pressure and who has the most to gain. I think it's an interesting question, and I look forward to seeing your response.
And check out Hawks Pistons tonight, ESPN.
Hawks Pistons on ESPN. Should be a good one. Should be an interesting one. Jalen Johnson, triple-double. Everybody, thanks for watching. Hit the like button on the way out.
We all silly like the mayor.